Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the morning glow, the satin dress shimmered, a delicate dance of light and fabric. Joey's fingers reached tentatively, as if the cloth might hold an electric charge. His wife, Michelle, radiated patience, the corners of her eyes crinkling with warmth. "You're still cautious after a decade of marriage?" She laughed softly, her eyes sparkling. "Joey, it's just us." "A decade," he mused. 10 years of shared memories, breakfast routines, joint financial endeavors, and nights spent dozing off to the same TV shows. Their anniversary celebration the night before had been a familiar affair, an intimate dinner at their favorite steakhouse, a bottle of their cherished Cabernet, and a recurring conversation about the possibility of expanding their family. "I still can't fathom why you want me to try this," Joey said, his hand brushing through his cropped brown hair. "Someone to shop with, someone to gossip with over mimosas." She stepped closer, straightening his collar. "And because I'm curious." "Curious about what your husband looks like in women's clothing?" Joey snorted. "Curious about what happens when we step outside our comfort zones." Michelle's voice softened. "We've been so predictable lately." Joey couldn't argue with that. Their life had settled into such a comfortable routine that sometimes days passed without anything memorable happening at all. "Just try it on. If you hate it, we'll never speak of it again." She kissed his cheek. "Promise." The bathroom door closed behind him with a soft click. Joey stood with the pink satin dress hanging from his fingers, feeling ridiculous. This wasn't him. He was Joey Martinez, operations manager at Lancaster Manufacturing. He watched football on Sundays and drank beer with the guys on Thursdays. He didn't wear dresses. And yet, he slipped off his t-shirt and jeans, standing in just his boxers. The dress looked impossibly small. How did women get into these things? He stepped into it carefully, pulling it up over his hips. The fabric whispered against his skin in a way that was surprisingly pleasant. He reached behind awkwardly, fumbling with the zipper. "Need help?" Michelle's voice came through the door. Joey swallowed. "Yeah." She entered, eyes widening slightly, then smiled as she moved behind him. Her fingers were cool on his back as she zipped him into the dress. "Turn around." He did, feeling exposed and vulnerable in a way he'd never experienced before. The dress hugged his waist, flaring slightly at the hips, the satin cool and slippery against his skin. "It actually fits pretty well," Michelle said, her head tilted critically. "You have narrow shoulders, and the color, it's good with your complexion." Joey forced himself to look in the mirror. The man staring back at him was still undeniably him, but also someone else entirely. The pink made his skin look warmer somehow. The cut of the dress created an illusion of curves where there were none. "How does it feel?" Michelle asked, watching him closely. Joey opened his mouth to say it felt wrong, awkward, embarrassing, but what came out was, "Soft. It feels soft." Michelle smiled, reaching into her makeup bag. "Let's see what else we can do." An hour later, Joey barely recognized himself. Michelle had worked magic with makeup, contouring his face to soften his jawline and enlarge his eyes. A blonde wig from her theater days completed the transformation. "You need a name," Michelle decided, stepping back to admire her work.
"This is just a one-time thing,"
Joey protested, but his eyes kept returning to the mirror. "Every woman needs a name," Michelle insisted. "How about Ophelia?" "Ophelia," Joey repeated softly. The name felt foreign on his tongue, yet somehow right for the person in the mirror. "Well, Ophelia," Michelle grinned, "how about we order in some wine and watch one of those romantic comedies you always complain about?" That night, they stayed up late, drinking wine and talking in a way they hadn't for years. Michelle taught him how to sit like a lady, laughing at his exaggerated attempts. By midnight, Joey had almost forgotten he was wearing a dress at all. Until Michelle's hand landed on his satin-covered thigh, her eyes darkening with an interest he hadn't seen in months. "This is unexpected," he said. "You're telling me?" Michelle replied, leaning closer. "I didn't think I'd find my husband in a dress so intriguing." Later, as they lay in bed, Joey staring at the ceiling, Michelle's head on his chest, she murmured, "Same time next weekend?" Joey's first instinct was to say no, to insist this had been a one-time experiment, a momentary step outside their normal lives. But the memory of the satin against his skin, the freedom he'd felt being someone else for a few hours. "Maybe," he said carefully, "maybe just one more time." Michelle smiled against his skin. "I already have some ideas for Ophelia's next outfit." The following Saturday, Joey found himself sitting at their vanity table as Michelle carefully applied foundation to his face. "Hold still," she instructed, tilting his chin up with one finger. "Your beard shadow is harder to cover than I expected." "I could have shaved closer," Joey offered. Michelle hummed, blending the makeup with a sponge. "Next time, maybe. Now, close your eyes." This time, Michelle had selected a blue sundress with white polka dots and a pair of low white heels. The blonde wig was replaced with an auburn one that fell in soft waves past his shoulders. "The blonde was too harsh for your complexion," Michelle explained, adjusting the auburn hair around his face. "This is much better. Brings out the warmth in your eyes." Joey had to admit she was right. The auburn color seemed to complement his hazel eyes in a way the blonde hadn't. "I got you something," Michelle said, disappearing into the closet. She returned with a small bag from an expensive boutique downtown. Inside was a delicate gold necklace with a small pendant. "For Ophelia," Michelle said softly. "Every woman needs her own jewelry." Joey let her fasten it around his neck, the cool metal settling against his collarbone. The small weight of it felt significant somehow, like an anchor to this new identity. "Perfect," Michelle declared, stepping back to admire the complete picture. "Now, I was thinking we could have lunch on the patio at Rosemary's. It's such a beautiful day." Joey froze. "Outside? In public?" "It's across town," Michelle reasoned. "No one we know will see us. And Ophelia looks amazing. No one would ever guess." Fear and excitement battled in Joey's chest. The idea of stepping outside as Ophelia was terrifying. And yet, there was something thrilling about it too. "I don't sound like a woman," he protested weakly. "Just speak softly and raise your pitch a little," Michelle demonstrated. "You can practice in the car." 2 hours later, Ophelia, was sitting at an outdoor cafe, sipping a mimosa across from Michelle, who couldn't stop smiling. "You're doing great," Michelle whispered. "The waiter didn't even look twice." Ophelia adjusted the auburn wig nervously. This is insane. This is adventure, Michelle corrected. Now, tell me what you think of that woman's hat over there. Girlfriends gossip, remember? It was strange how quickly they fell into it. Michelle chatted about people at her office, complained about her mother's phone calls, asked Ophelia's opinion on whether she should get highlights for summer, and Ophelia, after the first awkward minutes, found herself enjoying the role. There was a freedom in being someone else, Ophelia discovered. She didn't have Joey's reservations or Joey's history. She could laugh more freely, express opinions Joey might have kept to himself. I never knew you had such strong feelings about proper salad dressing, Michelle teased as they walked back to the car, Ophelia now comfortable enough in her heels to stroll at a leisurely pace. Joey doesn't care about salad dressing, Ophelia replied with a smile. I'm not Joey. Michelle squeezed her hand. No, you're certainly not. The next weekend, Ophelia accompanied Michelle to a department store, nervously following her through the perfume section. What do you think of this one? Michelle sprayed a sample on Ophelia's wrist. Too floral, Ophelia decided after a cautious sniff. I prefer something with more depth. Something mysterious for my mysterious lady, Michelle teased, leading her to another counter. By the time they reached the clothing section, Ophelia had relaxed enough to actually enjoy herself. Michelle held up various outfits, asking her opinion, encouraging her to touch the fabrics and consider the styles. Would you like to try something on? Michelle asked, holding up a forest green sweater dress. Ophelia hesitated. The changing rooms. Women try on clothes for each other all the time, Michelle said. No one will think twice about me joining my girlfriend in the changing room to give my opinion. It felt like crossing another threshold, but Ophelia nodded. The changing room attendant barely glanced at them as Michelle ushered Ophelia into the small cubicle with an armful of dresses and tops. I can't believe we're doing this, Ophelia whispered as Michelle zipped her into a black cocktail dress. Do you want to stop? Michelle asked seriously. Ophelia looked at herself in the mirror. The black dress was simpler than the others she'd worn, but somehow more elegant. It made her feel sophisticated in a way Joey had never experienced. No, she said finally. I don't want to stop. They left with 3 bags of new clothes, all for Ophelia. We should go out, Michelle suggested as they drove home. There's a new wine bar downtown. Live music on Saturday nights. Ophelia twisted the strap of her purse. That seems more public than lunch or shopping. You pass perfectly, Michelle assured her. And it's darker there, more atmospheric. The next weekend found them at a corner table in a dimly lit wine bar, sharing a cheese plate and listening to a jazz quartet. Michelle had helped Ophelia select a burgundy wrap dress from their shopping haul, paired with black heels and subtle gold jewelry. You look beautiful, Michelle had said before they left, and the sincerity in her voice had made Ophelia's heart flutter in a way Joey had almost forgotten. Now, nursing a glass of Cabernet, watching Michelle sway slightly to the music, Ophelia felt a contentment that was becoming familiar. These weekend transformations had developed a rhythm of their own. Friday nights were for preparation. Michelle would help with a close shave. They'd select outfits for the weekend. Saturday mornings were for the full transformation. Makeup, the auburn wig carefully styled, outfit and accessories. Then they'd have their girlfriend time, shopping, lunch, sometimes just walking in the park or having coffee. By Sunday evening, Ophelia would be packed carefully away, and Joey would return to the world of spreadsheets and client meetings. You're quiet tonight, Michelle observed, reaching across the table to touch Ophelia's hand. Just thinking about how strange this all is, Ophelia replied. A month ago, I'd never have imagined this is where we'd be. Michelle tilted her head. Do you regret it? No, Ophelia said, surprising herself with how true it was. I think I needed this. Maybe we both did. Our marriage has never been better, Michelle agreed, her fingers tracing patterns on Ophelia's wrist. It's like I have a husband during the week and a best girlfriend on weekends. The best of both worlds. The following Wednesday, Joey found himself distracted during a meeting, thinking about which of Ophelia's outfits would be best for the dinner Michelle had planned for the weekend. His colleague had to repeat a question twice before Joey tuned back into the discussion. That night, as they washed dishes together, Joey asked, Do you think the burgundy dress would be too formal for Palermo's on Saturday? Michelle looked up, surprised. Joey had never initiated a conversation about Ophelia's activities before. The burgundy might be a bit much, she said carefully. Maybe the navy blue with the white trim? It's elegant but not overly formal. Joey nodded, continuing to dry the plate in his hands. And maybe those pearl earrings you got last week? Michelle smiled, passing him another dish. Ophelia has good taste. As weeks passed, the boundary between Joey and Ophelia began to blur at the edges. Joey found himself adopting some of Ophelia's mannerisms, a certain way of tilting his head when listening, a more graceful way of using his hands when speaking. Michelle noticed him selecting clothes from his closet with more care, considering colors and styles in a way he never had before. That blue shirt brings out your eyes, she commented one morning as he dressed for work. Joey paused, tie in hand.
Ophelia's influence,
he admitted with a small smile. There were challenges, of course. One Saturday at a cafe across town, Ophelia nearly collided with one of Joey's co-workers. She ducked her head and hurried in the opposite direction, heart pounding, while Michelle made excuses about needing to use the restroom. That was close, Ophelia whispered when they reconvened at the car. Too close, Michelle agreed. Maybe we should expand our territory, try some places in the next town over. They did, discovering new restaurants and shops where there was no risk of running into familiar faces. Ophelia grew more confident with each outing, learning to modulate her voice, to move with a grace that came more naturally as time passed. 6 months into their new arrangement, Michelle presented Ophelia with a small box over brunch. What's this? Ophelia asked, setting down her mimosa. Open it and see. Inside was a silver charm bracelet with 2 charms, a tiny dress, and a miniature cosmetic compact. I thought we could add a charm for each new experience, Michelle explained as she fastened it around Ophelia's wrist. A record of your journey. Ophelia blinked rapidly, touched by the gesture. Thank you. It's perfect. Michelle squeezed her hand. I have something else too. An invitation, actually. An invitation? My college roommate Diane is having a girls' weekend at her lake house next month. She said I could bring a friend. Ophelia stared. You want me to come? For a whole weekend? With your friends? They don't know Joey, Michelle pointed out. They'd only be meeting Ophelia, and it's 3 hours away. We'd be completely safe. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. A full weekend as Ophelia, with other women who would only ever know her in that identity. What would you tell them about me? Ophelia asked. Michelle had clearly thought this through. That you're a friend from my yoga class, recently divorced, needing some girl time. Ophelia twisted the new bracelet around her wrist, considering. And you think I could pull it off? For a whole weekend? I think you already have a better sense of style than half the women who'll be there, Michelle said with a grin. And you're a better listener than any of them. 2 weeks before the lake house weekend, disaster struck. Joey came home from work to find Michelle sitting at the kitchen table, her expression grave. "What's wrong?" he asked, setting down his briefcase. "Diane called. Her brother's coming to the lake house too, with his friend David." Joey froze. "David Coleman? Your ex-boyfriend David?" Michelle nodded grimly. "The very same." David had dated Michelle for nearly 2 years before she met Joey. They'd met at mutual friend gatherings several times over the years. If he saw Ophelia...
"We have to cancel,"
Joey said, sinking into a chair. "We don't," Michelle countered. "We just need to be strategic. David always gets blind drunk at these gatherings. We could arrive after he's already passed out on Friday and leave before he wakes up on Sunday."
"That's cutting it awfully close,"
Joey warned. Or... Michelle's eyes lit up with a new idea. "We'd change your look. David's met Joey with short brown hair. Ophelia can have a different hair color, a completely different style." Joey considered this. "The auburn wig is pretty distinctive. So, we get a new one. Something completely different. And new glasses. You've never worn glasses as Ophelia." They spent the next weekend shopping for a complete transformation. A new wig in a rich, deeper auburn shade that framed Ophelia's face differently. Subtle wire-rimmed glasses that changed the appearance of her eyes. New makeup techniques that Michelle researched specifically to alter the appearance of facial features. "The key is misdirection," Michelle explained as she applied contouring in a new pattern. "People see what they expect to see. No one will be looking for Joey in Ophelia." The lake house weekend arrived, and Ophelia found herself sitting tensely in the passenger seat as Michelle drove, the countryside flashing by outside. "Remember, David doesn't usually emerge from his room until noon," Michelle reminded her. "We'll have breakfast early, then go kayaking until after he's left for the golf course." Ophelia nodded, fingering the charm bracelet that now had 4 charms, the latest a tiny silver kayak in anticipation of this weekend. The lake house was larger than Ophelia had expected, a sprawling cedar structure overlooking a pristine blue lake. Cars were already parked in the gravel driveway, and laughter filtered out from an open window. "Ready?" Michelle asked, squeezing Ophelia's hand. "As I'll ever be," Ophelia replied, adjusting her auburn wig one last time. Diane answered the door with a glass of wine already in hand. "Michelle!" she exclaimed, pulling her into a hug. "And you must be Ophelia! So glad you could join us!" Ophelia smiled, consciously keeping her voice in its practiced higher register. "Thank you for having me. Your home is beautiful." "Oh, it's just Dad's fishing retreat that I've gradually civilized." Diane laughed, ushering them inside. "Come meet everyone." The next few hours were a blur of introductions and small talk. Ophelia stayed close to Michelle at first, but gradually found herself drawn into conversations about books with Anna, a librarian from Boston, and about hiking trails with Tessa, who worked for an outdoor equipment company. "So, how do you know Michelle?" Tessa asked, as they refilled their wine glasses in the kitchen. "Yoga class," Ophelia replied, the prepared story coming easily now. "We bonded over our mutual inability to do a proper crow pose." By midnight, Ophelia was curled up on a sofa between Michelle and Anna, discussing a novel they'd all read, feeling more relaxed than she'd expected. David and the other men were apparently still at a bar in town, not due back until late. The next morning, Ophelia and Michelle were up early as planned, eating breakfast on the dock before taking kayaks out onto the misty lake. By the time they returned, David's car was gone, just as they'd hoped. "Operation avoidance successful," Michelle whispered as they changed for an afternoon of wine tasting. The day passed pleasantly, with the women moving between the local wineries and the lake house porch, conversations flowing as freely as the wine. Ophelia found herself enjoying the easy camaraderie, the lack of pretense that seemed to come with these female friendships. That evening, they were preparing dinner when the front door banged open and male voices filled the entryway. "They're back early," Diane said, wiping her hands on a towel. "The golf course must have closed early for the thunderstorm." Ophelia shot Michelle a panicked look. "Bathroom?" Michelle mouthed, and Ophelia slipped away just as David and 3 other men entered the kitchen. Locked in the bathroom, Ophelia leaned against the door, heart racing. She could hear David's booming laugh, the clinking of beer bottles. She couldn't hide in here all night. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michelle. "Stay calm. Your disguise is good. He's already had several beers. Just be confident." Taking a deep breath, Ophelia checked her appearance in the mirror. The auburn wig was secure, the makeup perfect. The glasses changed her face significantly. She straightened her shoulders and opened the door. The kitchen was crowded now, everyone helping with dinner preparations. David was leaning against the counter, beer in hand, talking loudly about their golf game. He glanced up as Ophelia entered, his eyes passing over her without a flicker of recognition. "You must be Michelle's friend," he said, offering his hand. "I'm David." Ophelia shook his hand, maintaining her higher voice. "Ophelia, nice to meet you." "Ophelia's a teacher," Michelle interjected smoothly, coming to stand beside her. "4th grade?" Ophelia added, remembering their cover story. David nodded vaguely, already turning back to his golf story. Ophelia caught Michelle's eye, both of them suppressing smiles of relief. The rest of the weekend passed without incident. David, true to Michelle's prediction, spent most of his time either drunk or hungover, barely interacting with the women. By Sunday morning, when they packed their car to leave, Ophelia felt almost disappointed that the weekend was ending. "That was amazing," she admitted as they drove home. "Being Ophelia full-time like that, not having to switch back." Michelle glanced over at her. "You seemed happy." "I was," Ophelia said softly. "Is that strange?" "I don't think so," Michelle replied. "I think it's just you discovering another part of yourself." The lake house weekend marked a turning point. Ophelia began to emerge more frequently, not just on weekends, but on random weeknights when Joey felt the need for her presence. Michelle would come home from work to find dinner prepared, Ophelia waiting in a casual dress, auburn hair caught up in a loose ponytail. "Should I be concerned that my wife is falling for my alter ego?" Joey joked one night as they lay in bed. Michelle propped herself up on one elbow. "I'm falling deeper in love with all of you," she corrected. "Joey, who supports my career and fixes the dishwasher. Ophelia, who listens to my work dramas and has impeccable taste in shoes. You're giving me more of yourself, not less." Their first anniversary after Ophelia's emergence was approaching, and Joey found himself browsing jewelry stores during his lunch break, looking for something special for Michelle. Not just a typical anniversary gift, but something that acknowledged the change in their relationship. He found it in a small boutique, a silver pendant with 2 intertwined circles, one slightly smaller than the other. "It represents balance," the jeweler explained. "The harmony of complementary forces." Joey knew immediately it was perfect. The night of their anniversary, they had reservations at an upscale restaurant downtown. Michelle was surprised when Joey suggested they both dress up. "I thought maybe Ophelia might like to celebrate too," he said, somewhat shyly. "We could go somewhere out of town, where no one knows us." Michelle's face lit up. "I know just the place. Very discreet, very elegant, about an hour's drive." That night, Ophelia emerged in a midnight blue dress they'd purchased for a special occasion, her auburn hair styled in soft waves. The pendant nestled at her throat, catching the light as she moved. "For the woman who loves all of me," Ophelia said as Michelle unwrapped her gift, a first edition of her favorite novel. "And for the person who finally let me know all of them," Michelle replied, pressing a kiss to Ophelia's cheek. As they drove home that night, Michelle at the wheel, since Ophelia had indulged in champagne, Ophelia gazed out at the passing streets. "I've been thinking," she said carefully, "about the future." Michelle glanced over. "What about it?" I think Ophelia wants more time. Not just weekends and special occasions." Michelle was quiet for a moment. "What would that look like?" "I don't know exactly," Ophelia admitted. "But maybe exploring options. There are jobs where I could work remotely, be Joey professionally but have more flexibility for Ophelia. Or
Other possibilities.
whatever you decide," Michelle said, reaching for her hand. "We'll figure it out together. You know that, right?" Ophelia squeezed her hand, watching the city lights blur past the window. "I know." The next morning, Joey sat at their kitchen table with his laptop, researching remote work opportunities in his field. Michelle came up behind him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. "Whatever you choose," she murmured against his ear, "I'm with you."
Even if it means big changes?
Joey asked, turning to look at her. "Especially if it means big changes," Michelle replied. "Look how well the last one turned out." Joey smiled, thinking of the auburn wig carefully stored in their closet, the dresses hanging beside his suits, the charm bracelet in its velvet box. What had started as a momentary step outside their comfort zone had become a journey neither of them could have anticipated.
"Maybe this weekend," he suggested. "Ophelia could look at some of those remote job listings."
Michelle nodded, pressing a kiss to his temple. "I think she'd have excellent insights." As Michelle moved to make coffee, Joey closed his laptop, a sense of possibility opening before him. The boundary between his two selves was shifting, changing into something new, not Joey or Ophelia, but someone who encompassed them both. And somehow, through all this discovery, his marriage had only grown stronger. 10 years together, and they were still finding new ways to know each other. Joey couldn't wait to see what the next decade would bring.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!